All right, so this lesson will take you through pages 25 and 26. Don't worry, it's not a big, huge, involved thing just because it's 2 pages. The first page, page 25, you can see it's one entire gray box. That is the lesson. Page 26 is just practice doing those skills. So we know about perfect intervals. We know about major intervals. Now we're going to introduce minor intervals. So when dealing with minor intervals, there's only one rule. And it's easy. Minor intervals have 1/2 step less than a major interval. So before we even get too bogged down in this, just remember, which interval sizes can be major? Remember from the previous lesson, there are two families, 2 groupings, or 2 classifications. The intervals of size 1, 4, 5, 8 are perfect. Intervals of 2, 3, 6, and 7 are major. Okay, so minor intervals are just major intervals where the interval is 1/2 step less, or the distance between the upper note and the lower note is a 1/2 step smaller than it should be. All right, so we're going to go through a few examples right here just to make that very clear. So while a major interval can be determined if the upper note is in the major scale of the lower note, a minor interval does not relate to the minor scale in the same way. So previously, in the last lesson, you were asking yourself, does the upper note fit within the scale of the lower note? Right? That's all you had to ask yourself. And if it does, that interval was either perfect or major. Is the top note in the major scale of the bottom note? If it is, you have a major interval, if it's of size 2, 3, 6, 7. All you have to do to determine minor scales is ask yourself one further question, if your first answer is no. So, if the upper note does not fit within the key signature of the lower note, then has that upper note been brought down a 1/2 step? Has the top note been flattened from the note that would be in the major scale of the bottom note? Okay, has that upper note come down a 1/2 step? If it has, it's a minor interval. What is normally a major third with a lowered upper note, that becomes a minor third. A major sixth whose upper note comes down a 1/2 step becomes a minor sixth. If that upper note was not a 1/2 step down, then it's something else. Don't worry about it for now. All right, so a few examples here. So they're showing us the difference between the major interval, which we know and recognize, and the relative minor interval that is just a slight shift on what the major interval was. So we'll see here that we have a major second in the key of C major. That's an interval of size 2. We have D naturals in the key of C major. That's all good. This is a major second. Over here, we have the same bottom note, and we have a D which has been lowered a 1/2 step. So in the key of C major, a major second would be a D natural. Since this D has been lowered a 1/2 step, this is a D flat, so this is a major interval has become minor. Same thing here, a major third, C to E, gives us a minor third when we lower that upper note by a 1/2 step. A major sixth right here, C up to A. C to A flat then gives us the minor sixth. And a major seventh, C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, up to the 7th note of the scale, almost to the octave, right? In the key of C major, we have B naturals. In the key of C major, we don't have B flats. This flat means the B has been lowered a 1/2 step out of the key signature. So what is normally a major 7th now becomes a minor 7th. So hopefully that makes sense. Now one little caveat. Don't let the accidentals fool you. Just because in these examples we had major intervals with natural notes, minor intervals with flattened notes, literally with a flat symbol in front of each of these, the flat symbol does not necessarily mean that the note has been taken out of the key signature. All right, let me show you a few examples of how that works. So down here we have an interval of size 3. You can see D, E, F sharp. Okay, so interval of size 3. Let me just write this down real quick. Okay, so we have it and we don't forget. All right, so interval is size 3. Now, as we can read, it says, this is a third, as we figured out, that's very easy. But what kind of third? We know that thirds can be major or minor. Okay, perfect. Major thirds are never perfect, right? Perfects are only 1, 4, 5, and 8. So this is either a major or a minor third. But what kind of third is it? Right. So first we have to determine, is the upper note part of the scale of the lower note? So the question they're asking here, is the F sharp in the major scale of D major? And the answer is yes. The key of D major, as you know, has 2 sharps, F and C, Father Charles. So we do pass through an F sharp when we play a D major scale. Since it fits in the scale, we call it a major third. And we're done. Even though we have a sharp symbol here, we have not technically altered that F. That should be an F sharp, because in the key of D major, we have F sharps. All right? Now, the other example down here, in D major is still, so D major has 2 sharps, F and C. This is a sixth, but what type of sixth? So we can see that it's a sixth, and the first question we ask ourselves is the B flat, is this upper note, in the major scale of D major? So do we have B flats in the key of D major? D major has the 2 sharps, so the answer is no. This B flat, we don't find B flats in the key of D major. So we know it's not a major sixth. The next question, is it a minor sixth? In other words, is this upper note, has it come down a half step than the major sixth? Yes, it has. We know that because B's should be natural in the key of D major. This B has been lowered by a half step because of the flat. Therefore, it's a minor sixth. And that's how we determine that it's a minor sixth. That flat sign means it's been lowered out of the key signature. So, assuming that all made sense, certainly review it again a couple times. Assuming it was good to go for you, feel free to carry on to the very next page where we simply have practice exercises recognizing intervals as either perfect, major, or minor. Okay, and a quick recap, perfect intervals are either of size 1, 4, 5, or 8, if the upper note fits in the scale of the bottom note. If they're of size 2, 3, 6, and 7, and the upper note fits within the scale, those are called major intervals. If they're of size 2, 3, 6, and 7, and the upper note doesn't fit, then ask yourself, has that upper note been lowered a half step out of the key signature? And if it has, you know you have a major interval that has become minor. So we would call it a minor third, or a minor second, a minor sixth, or a minor seventh. All right, so carry on with this page, and we'll take it up in class. See you later.